Our project started from a Feedback and Feedforward workshop where we tried to rethink the way that the traditional linear monologue of feedback is given to students at the end of their assessment and reconceptualize the Feedback Feedforward process as a cycle.
When students are asked to stand up in front of a class and do a presentation, particularly on something they've read or some particular topic, they firstly are a bit kind of reticent about doing so. They don't necessarily engage with it. They see it's something they have to do, and they also treat it as something quite difficult and quite risky. So I wanted to try and lose the risk element and give a bit more freedom to the students, and hopefully by letting them relax about the task, they would become more involved in it. They might even enjoy doing it and hopefully learn a little bit more. So we decided to replace presentation with video.
So in discussions with the unit convener, we decided to apply this to a traditional group presentation project, but to also transform it into a group video assessment. So students coming together, communicating, negotiating what the topic of that particular assessment was, and figuring out the best way to communicate those in a very short video format.
We thought, well, one way we can get students to engage with the feedback is if we have them engage with the marking criteria to begin with, and a good way to engage with the marking criteria is to have a stake in it. So be one of the creators that's involved in producing those marking criteria.
We basically came into class with some ideas about what we thought the rubric or the marking should be like for the assessment. And then we shared those with the class and then put up our group's ideas online. And then the conveners of the unit decided what were the most common or the most applicable kind of responses, and then that was what created the rubric.
We were asking groups to create a short video about a particular topic within the course. We set some very, very broad questions and gave them a lot of freedom within their groups to decide how to tackle those.
A lot of the work was done before we even started filming, so my job was to look at some examples of endangered languages and languages that had been revitalized. And then different people in our group looked at, writing our introduction and just different definitions and examples. And then we all came together to create a theme for the whole video, which was the most interesting part because we ended up going with a journalist who was telling you about what the project was. And then me and one other member of the group did the filming.
Well, I've grown up with YouTube and I've always enjoyed watching vloggers and stuff like that on YouTube and watching them do their job. So I was like, yes, this is a chance for me to show them what I can do as well.
Oh, well, this assignment was so different. Like, I've never done anything like this. I almost felt that I was thrown in the deep end of the assignment.
So it was very interesting to get it all together, and when it came to the filming stage, I was like, oh, I have a different idea. I don't just want to speak to the camera. Why don't I write a song parody about it instead?
Now, because it was a visual media, I didn't want too many words. So another journey began where I had to look for photos, and but I didn't want to put any photos. It was just like really poignant photos.
The final component involved some way for students to be able to review each other's group work and to provide feedback on that. So we looked at a range of peer marking tools and decided to go with peer grade. So we set up the peer marking through peer grade, which allowed students to submit a link to their video and then allocated about 5 to 15 students in the class to anonymously peer review them.
The system then allocates who marks what, and you have various controls over this. So I specified with this that each student would mark 3 videos.
So the beauty of peer grade is that we could utilise the criteria that the students co-created with their teachers to create a form of their questions so that they could evaluate each other's work.
So we did submit it to peer grade, and then what happened was we went in and graded 3 videos ourselves. So everyone in the class graded 3 of our classmates' videos based on the criteria we had created. And then obviously someone graded ours. So we got, I think, more than 10 responses, and then that accumulated to kind of be our mark.
So it was very interesting to watch all the videos.
They then clicked on whether they strongly agreed, neither agreed nor disagreed, and so forth on those statements. It worked out that every video was marked by 13 students.
So with peer marking, we have the students submitting their assignment, the deadline closes, then the peer marking period opens. So students log in, they view the work, and they fill out the form, which in this case we had co-created from the co-create the rubric activity, and they put their submissions through. The group of students who created the video in this case can then view that feedback and flag anything that they disagree with or endorse that recommendation.
This quantitative mark is then averaged, which actually ends up being a pretty fair system because it controls quite well for the extremes.
So one of the more interesting components of this approach is bringing students together and allowing them the opportunity to communicate to each other, to negotiate, to figure out the best way to convey their understanding of their domain knowledge in their discipline.
In terms of linguistics, it's awesome to see that information can be presented in lots of different ways, and human science is not all just about essays and papers and articles. It's about communicating with people in the best way possible.
This form of assessment was definitely amazing, and I would love to see it incorporated into other units as well and other assignments, because not all kids learn the same way. They don't all learn from a textbook. They're more hands-on, like myself. So being able to do that was fantastic, and I feel like I got more out of it than I did from writing an essay. And it allows those creative kids to express themselves as well. Another
significant aspect of this approach is transforming that typical traditional monologue of feedback into that dialogue we are seeking between students and teachers. And that's really initiated from bringing the students into co-creating the rubric to using that information as part of their peer marking so that they can build their skills in how to evaluate work in their discipline.
So from a completely selfish point of view, this didn't so much reduce my workload, but it shifted it into a place in the semester where it was much easier to deal with. It meant I was doing most of my work at the start when I was designing the whole system and working out how it was all going to work and coming up with the ideas of the workflow and so forth, and just making sure every element of it fit into place.
And I think taking time to think about the ways that we can really flip the traditional linear notion of feedback to make it more cyclical and to really emphasize the ways in which we can teach students about feeding forward. How can they use that feedback to improve their future performance?
So one of the benefits of this approach of using these kind of group video and just group assessment things in general is that students learn not just the content, they don't just learn about the topic, they also learn how to behave as an active member of a group. They construct their own learning journey through the interaction with each other, and they work out something about themselves, about their skills, their personal attributes that they're able to contribute to the successful pursuit of a project. And that's something that can stay with them well beyond their university experience.